Today I'm going to talk about the nose and the sinuses. This will be more of an overview. There's quite a lot to cover, just the really high yield stuff. So first thing first, I'm going to talk about the nose. So the nose is an organ and it's part of the respiratory system. From the side view, you can see from the diagram that there's the nasal bone in front, and then there's several cartilages, including the septal and the greater are like cartilages, and then there are other bones which form part of the nose as well. So there's the ethmoid bone, there's the palatine bone, the maxillar bone, and the vomer bone. So all of these come together to form the shape of a person's nose. If we take away the bones and the cartilages and we look at the inside of the nose from the side, we can see that there's the nasal opening and then there's the turbinates inside the nose. So as air flows through the nose, it gets humidified with the help of the turbinates. There's another structure within the nose called the conchi, and these are bony projections in the nose and they form part of the turbinates. So essentially the turbinate is the conchi with the overlying soft tissue. Another function of the nose is to help us smell. The cribriform plate forms part of the upper bony border between the nose and the brain. If you look at it from a cranial nerve point of view, the olfactory nerve, which is cranial nerve 1, it passes through the plate into the upper part of the nose, and that helps us to smell. The last part of the nose I'm going to cover are the meatus. So there's a superior, middle, and inferior meatus, and the meatus are essentially cavity below the concha, and they are associated with the concha. So the superior meatus is beneath the superior concha, the middle meatus is beneath the middle concha, and so on. They are also involved in humidifying and heating up air and helping to filter air through the nose. The nose also has hairs and mucus, and this helps to trap particles as well as pathogens from entering further into our respiratory system. Now that is a brief overview of the nose, so I'm going to move on to the sinuses now. Sinuses are air-filled spaces that drain into the nasal cavity, so they are named after the bones that they're in. So from the top, there's the frontal sinus, and then below that are the ethmoid sinuses or ethmoid air cells, and then below that are the maxillary sinus, and then if you look behind the ethmoid sinuses, there's also the sphenoid sinus. So each sinus is associated with the bone that they're in. Most of the sinuses are also paired. So the frontal sinuses, there's one on either side of the forehead, as well as this applies to the maxillary sinus, as well as the sphenoid sinus and the ethmoid sinuses. And these form the four paired sinuses. Each of the sinuses have an ostium or hiatus that they drain out of and into the nose. The hiatus of the frontal maxillary as well as the anterior ethmoidal sinuses are found under the semilunar hiatus, which is found in the middle nasal meatus. The maxillary sinus is the biggest one, and mucus from the frontal sinus often drains into there. That is part of how infections spread so easily between the sinuses. The ethmoidal sinuses are also known as the ethmoid air cells. They vary in size and they are grouped according to their locations. There are anterior, middle, and posterior groups of air cells. The posterior group's hiatus are found in the superior meatus. And as I mentioned earlier, the anterior hiatus is found in the middle nasal meatus and the middle ethmoidal air cells. Their hiatus, it varies in location, but it's generally either between the superior or the middle meatus. I'm now going to talk a bit about blood vessels within the nose. Some of them do have clinical significance, so I'm just going to quickly go through them. There is an area within the nose where 5 arteries, anastomos, is known as Little's area or key cell plexus. Sorry about my pronunciation. This is near the anterior nasal septum. The reason why this is significant is because it's the most common site of nosebleed or epistaxis. So the 5 arteries that are involved in the that anastomose in that area are the anterior ethmoidal artery, posterior ethmoidal artery, sphenopalatine artery, greater palatine artery, and the septal branch of the superior labial artery. It's also good to know these arteries originate. So the anterior ethmoidal artery and the posterior one, they are branches of the internal carotid artery, and the sphenopalatine, greater palatine, superior labial, and lateral nasal arteries are branches of the external carotid artery. So that was a brief overview of the nose and sinuses. Hope that was useful.